Okay.
Okay, well, what happened was, probably about 8:30 Monday evening, two men began to repeatedly ring my doorbell and pound on my door. And and I live in Marietta, I have one of those steel security doors on the outside of my front door, so I can open the inside door and look and talk through a locked steel door.
Mm-hmm.
So I opened the inside door and asked them, fairly rudely because of what they were doing, what they wanted, and they didn't identify themselves, so they just began to demand to speak to somebody that I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
They were asking, not saying, gosh, they were like, you better get him to the door right now. And I said, you have the wrong house, you need to leave, and I shut the door.
Mm-hmm.
And they continued to ring the doorbell and kick the door, or at least they were pounding on the door. I don't know if they were kicking it, I couldn't see, but they continued to do that for another minute or two, and I opened the door again, and I told them that I was going to call the police, and one of the men began to laugh. And I closed the door again, and they continued it. In fact, they probably got louder with their pounding and kicking the house, and one of them started to hit a window with his fist. And I thought at that point that they were going to break in. And so I told my wife to call the police, and I ran upstairs, and I got my pistol out of the gun box. And I came back downstairs, and I opened the inside door, and I said, I've got a gun, and you need to leave now. Well, that finally convinced them that it was time to leave, so they left, and they walked out of my line of sight, and I heard car doors opening, so I opened the front. I can't see my driveway from the front door, so I opened the front door, and I stepped out just far enough where I could see what was going on, and these two guys climbed into a white pickup truck that was parked in my driveway, and they backed out, and they drove off down the street. And I went back in the house thinking, okay, now we just have to wait for the police to get here and everything, we can tell them what happened and they'll take care of it. Well, about 20 minutes later, I heard a lot of commotion out in my driveway, honking and yelling, and I opened the door and walked out to see what was going on. Well, it was the same white truck again, and they had their front wheels just up in my driveway, and they were flashing their lights from dim to bright, and they were honking the horn repeatedly, and they were yelling something out the windows I couldn't hear. And I started yelling that they needed to leave and get away from my house. And then the guy revved the engine, and he lurched the truck forward directly at me. It scared me, and I thought they were going to run over me, to be frank. And I pulled my pistol at the front grill of the truck, and instantly 7 Marietta police officers came charging out from beside the truck and from both sides of me, and were screaming at me. And they were heavily armed. At least two of them had long guns. And so I immediately complied with what the police said. I got down on the ground and, dropped the gun and everything. And they came up and handcuffed me. Well, I couldn't tell who they were. They didn't have any identifying marks on their uniforms. They were dressed all in black. And I was trying to look through the darkness. I couldn't really see. But then this truck turned off its lights, backed out the driveway, and drove off down the street. There were no police cars in the street at all. And I live on a cul-de-sac, and I can see about 100 yards down my street. There were no police cars, and I started to worry that maybe I had just surrendered to armed guys that were with these gentlemen, and I started demanding to know who they were. Finally, one of the guys pulled out a business card and showed it to me that identified him as a Marietta police officer. And I didn't think that was sufficient, and so I started hollering for my neighbor, Vic, who was a master sergeant in the Marines and knows the local police very well, because I haven't lived here all that long. And I was hollering for him, and finally one of them produced a badge and showed me. And then they put me in the back of the police car, and they drove me to the Marietta police station, and I wound up going to the Southwest Detention Facility over off of Ald Road in Winchester. Now, I hadn't been able to talk to my wife for hours and hours, and finally when I got bailed out and I got home, what I found out was after they drove me off, they came and stormed into my house and terrified my wife and child and searched our entire house. And my daughter said that one of the men with one of the long guns walked up and stuck his rifle in my wife's face because she couldn't tell who they were either. And she demanded to know who they were, and his reply was, "You know who we are." And then they searched the entire house and then left. I got bailed out. It actually turned out to be Wednesday morning about 6 a.m. And ever since I've gotten bailed out, I've been charged with 2 felonies. I just can't believe the way that whole thing went down. And I don't understand why the police didn't come and knock on my door and say, hey, we've got a complaint here that you have a gun, or something along those lines, rather than this, to bring bring these guys back that had been assaulting my house and have them come out.
Let me ask you a few questions. Did they have a warrant when they came the first time, or the second time, or when they dealt with your wife?
Did who have a warrant? The police?
Yes.
No, sir. We've never seen anything from the police at all in, paper, right, or anything like that. And the two fellows, now here's also what I found out after the fact. Apparently, there was a repossession order for my motorcycle, okay? These guys didn't identify themselves as having anything to do with that. When I was in jail, the motorcycle finance company called my wife and said that they were from the Department of Corrections, and that if she didn't surrender my motorcycle while I was in jail, they were going to file additional felony charges, and I would be in jail for years.
They were hold it. They were making that up.
Of course they were.
And this is the finance company trying to use a trick to get the motorcycle back or to get payment for it.
Absolutely, I knew that, but I couldn't contact my wife, and she couldn't contact me because I was in custody.
Did she release the bike? Did she release the bike to them?
She absolutely did. She was terrified because I'm the sole provider of income for this family.
Right. So they went that far to get a motorcycle back.
Yes, sir. That's what it appears to be. I still do not know who the gentlemen were in the truck.
Okay, let me start over again. Hold on. Let me make sure I understand the story completely. You were was this at night?
Yes, sir. It was about
Okay.
8:30 at night.
Okay, 8:30 at night. You hear people banging on your door. They won't leave. They're pounding on all the windows. You ultimately come outside with a weapon because you're fearing for your safety and your family's safety. And you don't.
I didn't go outside the first time.
Okay, but I'm just kind of summarizing what you said. Basically, after all this pounding, you finally came out with the weapon after a lengthy time of them banging on your windows and doors, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now when you came outside, you were still feeling afraid because they wouldn't identify themselves, and you felt that they might try to hit you with the car or do something else that might harm you, correct?
Yes, sir. The fact they lurched the truck at me, that's what caused me to pull the pistol out of my pocket and point it at the truck.
Okay, so now they take off, and then several moments later, you have the local Marietta police at your home.
No, sir. That's not what happened.
Okay.
What happened was as soon as I pulled the pistol out of my pocket and pointed it at the truck, 7 Marietta police officers, I now know that they were police officers, came charging from beside the truck. They were using the truck as cover.
So hold it. So they were already on the scene with the two gentlemen in the white pickup truck?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, these men in the white pickup truck, did you ever ultimately identify them and what their role in this was?
No, sir. I do not know who they were to this day.
Okay. Do you
I'm
think?
only making this.
Hold on. Do you
making
think?
assumptions based on what.
Okay. Do you think they were police officers or repo men?
I think they were repo men because my wife said the man that came to get the motorcycle while I was in custody came in a white pickup truck, and one of the officers that was there the evening before was accompanying him.
Okay. Do you have a photograph of the motorcycle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you email that to me if I send you an email right now?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay. And you obviously, were protecting your family, and when the police arrested you, did they take your weapon from you?
Yes, sir.
They did. And do they still have your weapon now?
Yes, sir, they do.
Okay. And did they? What were the two charges that they charged you with?
Section 422, criminal threat, and Section 417, brandishing a firearm.
Nothing else?
No, sir.
Well, let me just give you my first reaction to what you've told me. This is going to go nowhere. I mean, I can't guarantee you that, but if you get a reasonable jury and you have a decent attorney, this is ridiculous. Okay, criminal threat, and what was the other charge? Brandishing a weapon? 417?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Sir.
all right. 417, PC.
And according to the bail bondsman, they were both lodged as felonies.
Okay, well that's serious, and you do need to deal with it, but I just don't think there's any evidence to support this if the things that you described are true. Now,
It's my word against seven police officers.
Well, we're gonna help you with that.